My name is Clara Watson, and I never imagined my life would lead me to a situation like this. At 30, I was comfortable. I had a stable job as a school counselor, a small but cozy apartment in the city, and a dog who loved to take long walks with me. I was content, or at least I thought I was, until the call came. It was from Horizons Care Agency, a prestigious firm that connected qualified caregivers to wealthy families in need. They asked me if I would consider taking on a challenging assignment, caring for Lily Harris, the 14-year-old daughter of Andrew Harris, a billionaire tech mogul. I had my doubts. I'd heard about Lily's past. 5 caregivers had been hired and fired in the past year. They described her as angry, rebellious, and impossible to manage. She had been through more than any child should have to endure, but the agency believed that I might be able to reach her. I'd worked with troubled teens before, and though I was unsure about jumping into the situation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Lily's story than what was being said. I hesitated, but after a long internal debate, I agreed. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? The first time I arrived at the Harris estate, I was struck by the overwhelming contrast between the sleek, modern mansion and the emotional emptiness that seemed to hang in the air. The house was a testament to wealth and success, imposing iron gates, a grand marble entryway, and glass walls overlooking manicured gardens. But as I walked through the front door, I couldn't help but feel an undercurrent of sadness. Andrew greeted me with a tired smile, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, as if he hadn't slept properly in years. He looked older than his 40-something years. "Clara," he said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "Thank you for coming. I have to admit, I'm not sure how much help you'll be, but Mrs. Reese spoke highly of your qualifications." "I'm happy to help," I replied, though I could feel the nerves twisting in my stomach. "I'm looking forward to meeting Lily." "She's upstairs," Andrew said quietly, his voice dropping almost as if he were hesitant to speak about her. "But she's not easy. She's been through a lot since her mother passed. She's difficult." I nodded, trying to keep my composure, though a part of me wondered how bad it could be. I had worked with grief before, and though I had heard rumors, I wasn't prepared for the reality of the situation. As I followed Andrew upstairs, I braced myself, not knowing what to expect from a teenager who had been through so much at such a young age. When Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, I was immediately struck by her posture. Arms crossed, eyes narrowed, clearly sizing me up. "Another one?" she muttered, rolling her eyes as she glared down at me. "I don't need another babysitter." I didn't take it personally. After all, she was 14, and rejection was something teenagers often dealt with. But there was something in her voice, something raw, that told me her anger went deeper than the typical teenage rebellion. I offered a calm smile and said, "I'm not here to make you do anything you don't want to do. I just want to say hello." Lily didn't answer. Instead, she turned and stormed off down the hallway, muttering under her breath about how tired she was of people trying to fix her. Andrew sighed deeply, his face creased with worry. "She's been like this since her mom died 2 years ago. We've tried everything. Therapy, even sending her to a boarding school for a while, but nothing works. She won't talk about her mom. Every time we try, she just shuts down or lashes out." I could see that this wasn't just about behavior. It was grief. I could feel it in the tension in the air, in the way Andrew spoke about Lily. She was angry, and he was at his wits' end. I realized then that this wasn't going to be easy, but it might just be the most important work I'd ever do. The next few days were a blur of awkward moments and tense silences. Lily's walls were high, and I quickly learned that she wasn't interested in my attempts to connect. She would storm off whenever I tried to talk to her, retreating into her room or the garden where she'd put on her headphones and ignore the world. I didn't take it personally. I knew this was part of the process. Grief made people act out, and Lily, with all her anger and hurt, was no exception. I kept trying, not pushing too hard, just offering a quiet presence when I could. One afternoon, as I was sitting in the living room reading a book, Lily came in with her head down, avoiding eye contact. I didn't expect much, but she surprised me by sitting on the couch opposite me. She crossed her arms tightly, her expression defensive. "You're probably just like all the others," she muttered, "trying to get me to talk about stuff I don't want to talk about." I put my book down slowly, careful not to look like I was about to pounce on her words. I'm not trying to make you talk, I said softly. I'm just here. If you want to talk, I'm here to listen. If you don't, that's okay too. She glanced up at me for a split second, almost as if she was testing me. Then she dropped her gaze again, looking at the floor. Everyone says that, but they don't get it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't get it either. You don't know what it's like to lose someone you love. The words hit me harder than I expected. I had lost my brother when I was 16, and I knew how deep that pain went. I took a breath before responding, careful not to push too hard. You're right. I don't know exactly what it's like to lose your mom, I said quietly, but I know what it's like to lose someone you love. I lost my brother, and I know that grief isn't something you can just get over. It stays with you, and it changes you. Lily didn't say anything for a long while. We sat in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. I didn't expect an instant breakthrough, but I saw something shift in her eyes, just the faintest glimmer of something resembling trust. A few days later, I found Lily in the garden again, sitting by herself on the swing. It was late afternoon, and the soft golden light of the setting sun made the whole scene feel quiet, almost peaceful. I hesitated for a moment, but then decided to sit beside her. We were both quiet for a while, the only sound being the creaking of the swing as it moved gently back and forth. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. I hate it here, she said, her hands gripping the chains of the swing tightly. I hate being alone. I hate that everything feels so different now. And I hate that I can't just be angry all the time. I wasn't sure how to respond, but I knew this was the first time she was really expressing herself, even if it was just a little bit. It's okay to be angry, I said gently. It's okay to feel all of those things, but I want you to know you don't have to feel them by yourself. You don't have to push everyone away just because it feels safer. Lily didn't answer, but she didn't get up and leave either. I stayed next to her, just being there, letting the silence speak for us. It was a small step, but it felt significant. I didn't know how long it would take for Lily to fully open up, but I was starting to believe that with patience and understanding, maybe, just maybe, I could help her find a way through her pain. The days that followed were a delicate balance of small moments and deep silence. Lily and I had settled into a kind of routine, though it was a quiet one. I didn't push her to talk, but I always made sure she knew I was there if she needed someone. Most days, she would retreat to her room or the garden, avoiding me, but there were times when she would sit with me in the living room, a subtle shift in her demeanor, like she was beginning to test the waters. One afternoon, after school, she came downstairs, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her face tired but not angry for the first time in days. You want to play a game? She asked, her voice flat but steady. I looked up from my book, surprised. Sure, I said, setting it aside. What do you want to play? Chess, she said, her lips curving slightly in what might have been the smallest smile I'd seen. I nodded and followed her to the table, where she had already set up the board, her fingers lightly tracing the pieces. We played in silence at first, the only sounds being the quiet click of the pieces moving and the soft shuffle of the clock. Lily wasn't the best at chess, but she played with a sort of focus that made me think there was more going on in her head than I could see. As I watched her carefully think through each move, I realized that this was the first time she had chosen to spend time with me, not out of obligation or to follow a routine, but because she wanted to. For the first time since I'd arrived, I felt like she might be starting to trust me, just a little. After a few rounds, Lily made a mistake with one of her moves. I'm so stupid, she muttered under her breath, her fingers curling into a fist on the table. I paused, watching her closely. You're not stupid, Lily, I said gently, pushing my piece forward. Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is that you learn from them. She shot me a sharp look, then sighed, leaning back in her chair. It's not just chess. I make mistakes all the time. Like with Mom. I should have spent more time with her. I should have done more. But I was always mad at her, always mad at everything. And now, she's gone. Her voice wavered, and I could see the wall she had built up around herself starting to crack. I wanted to say something comforting, something to take away her pain, but I knew better than to offer empty words. Instead, I set my piece down carefully, then took a deep breath. I think it's okay to be angry, Lily. I really do, I said, my voice steady. But it's also okay to forgive yourself. You didn't do anything wrong. Grief makes you do strange things, and sometimes you don't know how to deal with it. It's not your fault. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away, her face turning away in embarrassment. I don't want to talk about it, she muttered, standing up abruptly and walking out of the room. I didn't chase after her. I knew pushing her wouldn't help. She needed time, and I needed to respect that. But I also knew that this was a breakthrough. The words she had said, the rawness in her voice, they meant something. For the first time, Lily had admitted her guilt and pain, even if she hadn't been ready to fully process it. I had seen a glimpse of the little girl she used to be, the one who wasn't so consumed by grief. Later that evening, after dinner, Lily came back into the living room and, without saying anything, sat down next to me on the couch. She didn't ask to play chess again, but the quiet presence between us felt comfortable. She leaned her head against the back of the couch, staring at the TV, but I could tell she wasn't really watching it. After a while, she whispered, "Thanks for playing chess with me." I smiled softly, my heart full. "Anytime, Lily, anytime." It had been a few weeks since that night, and I was starting to notice something different in Lily. She wasn't as distant as she used to be. She still had her moments, angry outbursts, withdrawn silences, but there were more moments where she'd speak to me without the usual wall of resistance. It was slow progress, but it was progress nonetheless. One afternoon, after school, she came into the living room carrying a box. It was small, decorated with stickers that looked like they had been applied carelessly but with love. "Clara, can I show you something?" she asked, her voice hesitant but softer than I'd heard it in a while. I set down my book and turned my attention to her, a little surprised but pleased by her request. "Of course. What's in the box?" Lily hesitated before opening the lid. Inside were several old photographs, letters, and trinkets, things that looked like they belonged to her mother. She picked up a picture of her mom holding her as a baby, smiling brightly. Lily traced her finger across the photo, her expression unreadable. "These are things I've kept, things I didn't want to forget," she said quietly, not meeting my gaze. I nodded, careful not to say too much. I had learned by now that forcing her to talk wasn't the right approach. She would speak when she was ready. She picked up a small charm bracelet, the one her mom had worn every day. Lily's fingers lingered on it, her face softening as she ran her thumb over the small beads. "This was hers," she murmured, the first hint of emotion in her voice. She used to tell me that whenever I felt sad, I could hold it and think of her. I didn't say anything at first, just let her hold the bracelet in her hand. It felt like a delicate moment, one that could either slip by or deepen our connection. Finally, I spoke, keeping my voice gentle. "I think your mom would be proud of you, Lily. She would be proud of how strong you've been, even when it feels like everything is falling apart." Lily's lips quivered as if she was about to say something, but held back. Instead, she set the bracelet down carefully and picked up a letter. It was addressed to her in her mother's handwriting. She hesitated, then slowly unfolded it. As she read, her voice barely audible, I could hear the words she was speaking, even though she wasn't saying them aloud. "Lily," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means I'm not here to tell you how much I love you. But you already know that, don't you? You are my heart, my world. And I know you're strong enough to handle whatever comes your way. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not enough, because you are. I believe in you. Always have, always will." Lily's voice faltered at the last sentence, and for a moment, she didn't speak at all. The weight of her grief was palpable in the silence that followed. I didn't try to fill it with words. I just sat beside her, offering the quiet support I knew she needed. "I miss her so much," Lily whispered, tears starting to spill from her eyes. I had never heard her voice break like that before, and the rawness of it hit me hard. "I know, sweetheart," I said softly, my voice steady. "I know, but it's okay to miss her. It's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to love her, even though she's not here." Lily curled up beside me, her body trembling with the weight of her emotions. I put my arm around her, holding her close. For the first time since I'd arrived, I felt like Lily truly understood that she wasn't alone in her grief. She had been carrying it by herself for so long, but now, with every word, every tear, she was allowing herself to lean on someone else. In that moment, I realized that this journey, though far from over, wasn't just about helping Lily heal. It was about showing her that it was okay to let others in, to let herself feel everything she needed to feel, and to understand that grief didn't have to be carried in isolation. It could be shared, and in that sharing, there was healing. I held her a little tighter, knowing that this was just one step in a long road. But for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. The days following that moment with the letter felt like a turning point. Lily seemed to carry herself a little lighter, though I knew her grief was still very much a part of her. But there was a new openness in her. She was willing to talk more, sometimes in fits and starts, sometimes with an almost reluctant honesty, and I noticed the subtle shift in her demeanor. She was no longer hiding behind anger all the time. She had started allowing herself to be vulnerable, and it wasn't easy for her. I could tell. One evening after dinner, I found Lily sitting at the kitchen counter, staring out the window. It had been raining all afternoon, and the streets were slick with water, the sky heavy with clouds. I decided to join her, pulling out a chair beside her. "You okay?" I asked, keeping my voice soft, respectful of the quiet space she had created for herself. Lily glanced over at me, her eyes red from what I assumed had been more tears. She sighed but didn't push me away, which I took as a good sign. I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting her sometimes. Like, I'll be okay one day, and then I remember something, and it hurts again. It's like I'm trying to move on, but I don't want to forget her. I could hear the pain in her words, the conflict she was struggling with, wanting to heal but feeling guilty for letting go of the past. I leaned in, offering her the same calm reassurance I had given her before. It's normal to feel that way. Grief doesn't have a timeline, and it's okay to hold on to your mom in the ways that matter. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting her. It just means finding a way to live with the love and the memories she left behind. Lily nodded, but she didn't seem fully convinced. But what if I forget her voice? What if I stop remembering the little things she did that made her, her? She wiped a stray tear from her cheek, her voice thick with emotion. "You won't forget her, Lily," I said firmly, knowing the depth of her fear. "Your mom's a part of you. All those little things, those memories, they're inside you, and they'll always be with you. The love you have for her, that's never going away. It'll be there, even on the hard days." Lily looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something I hadn't seen in her before. Hope. She didn't say anything, but I could see that my words had reached her, if only a little. The next few weeks were quieter, in a good way. Lily and I spent more time together, doing simple things like cooking dinner or walking Max around the neighborhood. We still had our moments, of course. She would get upset, sometimes retreating into herself, but now she was more willing to open up afterward. And when she couldn't talk, I just let her be, giving her the space she needed while also being there when she was ready. One afternoon, as we were sitting on the couch together watching a movie, Lily leaned her head on my shoulder, a small, tentative gesture. It was the kind of thing that might have seemed insignificant to anyone else, but for me, it felt like everything. "I think Mom would like you," she said quietly, breaking the silence between us. "She'd be happy you're here with me." I wasn't sure how to respond at first, but I could feel the warmth of her words, and it meant more to me than I could explain. "I'm glad to be here, Lily. I'm really glad." We sat there for a while, the movie forgotten, the comfort of our silence wrapping around us like a blanket. In that moment, I felt like we had reached another level of understanding, like the distance between us had closed just a little bit more. And as I looked at Lily, I saw not just the grieving girl I had met a few months ago, but someone who was slowly learning to carry her grief, to live with it, and to move forward while still holding on to the love she had for her mother. It wasn't easy, and I knew there would be more hard days ahead. But I also knew that Lily had the strength to face them, and I would be right there with her, every step of the way. It had been a few months since that quiet evening when Lily had leaned on my shoulder, and I had begun to see more changes in her. She was still grieving, still working through the pain of losing her mom, but there was a new calmness about her. She had started to talk more openly about her feelings, even asking for advice or just seeking comfort when things became too overwhelming. She still had her tough moments, times when the sadness would hit her out of nowhere, but they were fewer and further between. She was beginning to take more control over her emotions, and I could see her slowly stepping into the young woman she was meant to become. One afternoon, I found Lily in the garden again, this time not sitting alone, but with a notebook in her hands, scribbling away. The weather had been warm, and the garden was in full bloom, with the flowers her mom had loved so much, adding bursts of color to the space. Lily had spent the last few weeks tending to the garden, something she had barely been interested in before. She had a quiet focus about her now, and it seemed like she was trying to create something beautiful in the midst of her pain. "Hey, what's that?" I asked, walking over to her as she wrote in the notebook. Lily didn't look up at first, but then she slowly closed the notebook and gave me a shy smile. "Just some thoughts. Stuff I've been feeling, you know?" I sat down beside her, giving her the space to decide whether or not to share. Over the past months, I had learned to let her come to me with what was on her mind. She wasn't as closed off as she used to be, but she still needed time to process things before opening up. "I'd love to hear what you've been writing," I said gently, wanting her to feel comfortable. Lily hesitated for a moment, then handed me the notebook. "It's not much, just memories, thoughts about Mom, and how I can still carry her with me." I opened the notebook to the first page where Lily had written a few short sentences. "Mom used to say that no matter how far we go, we're always together. I didn't get it before, but I think I do now." I could feel the lump forming in my throat as I read her words. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was growth. Lily was processing her pain and transforming it into something positive, something meaningful. She wasn't just holding on to her mother's memory. She was learning how to let that memory guide her, how to live with the love her mother had left behind, instead of being paralyzed by the loss. "That's beautiful, Lily," I said, closing the notebook and handing it back to her. "You're really starting to heal." She looked down at her hands, her fingers playing with the edge of the notebook. "It's still hard sometimes. Like, I'll be fine for a while, and then something small will remind me of her, and it's like I can't breathe. But I think I'm getting better at it." "You are," I assured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Grief isn't something that goes away. It's something you learn to carry. And I'm really proud of how you're handling it." Lily met my eyes, her expression softening. "I couldn't have done it without you, Clara. I know I've been difficult, but you didn't give up on me." I smiled, my heart full. "I never would have. You're worth the effort, Lily. I'm just happy you're letting me be here with you." There was a long silence between us, but it was a peaceful one. I could feel the bond between us growing stronger with each passing day, and it wasn't just me helping her anymore. She was helping herself, finding her own way through the grief, and that was something she needed to realize about herself. She was capable of so much more than she had given herself credit for. As the sun began to set, casting a soft glow over the garden, I couldn't help but think how far we had come. From the angry, withdrawn girl who had first met me to the young woman who was beginning to open up, to find peace, and to create something beautiful from her pain, Lily had come a long way. And I knew that, no matter what, she would continue to grow, and I would be there, watching her blossom, just as she had helped me understand the true meaning of healing. The months went by in a gentle rhythm, and Lily's transformation became more and more apparent. She was still grieving, still carrying the weight of her mother's loss, but it no longer defined her. She had started to open up to people again, her father, me, even a few of her old friends. There was less anger in her now, more acceptance, more peace in her eyes when she talked about her mother. I could see that she was slowly but surely moving forward, taking the pain and shaping it into something that would allow her to live her life without the constant feeling of drowning in grief. One afternoon, as I was sitting in the living room, working on a few things, Lily walked in with a box in her hands. She looked at me, her expression a little nervous. She had become more confident in herself over time, but I could still sense when she was unsure about something. "Clara?" she asked, her voice a little tentative. I looked up from my work and smiled at her. "Hey, what's up?" She sat down next to me, placing the box on the table between us. "I've been thinking," she began, her fingers nervously picking at the edge of the box. "I want to do something for Mom. Something that feels like saying goodbye, but also keeping her with me, you know? Something that honors her." I sat up a little straighter, my heart swelling with pride. "What do you have in mind?" Lily opened the box, revealing several small items. Photos, a few of her mother's favorite books, a couple of her mom's old pieces of jewelry. There were also letters, written in Lily's neat handwriting. "I've been working on this for a while," she said, her voice still soft, but filled with a quiet determination. "I want to make a memory box, a real one this time. Not just a place for the things I can't forget, but a space where I can keep all the good parts of her alive, even though she's not here. I thought maybe you could help me with it?" My chest tightened at her words, and I couldn't help but smile. "Of course, Lily. I'd be honored to help." We spent the afternoon together, carefully choosing the items to put in the memory box, talking about her mom in ways we hadn't before. Lily shared stories about the little things her mom used to do, like making her favorite pancakes on Saturday mornings or sitting with her for hours while she practiced piano. It was the first time I had seen Lily talk about her mother with such warmth, without the heavy veil of grief clouding her words. It was clear that she had been carrying those memories for so long, and now she was ready to let them be part of who she was, who she would become. By the time the box was packed and sealed, there was a sense of closure in the room, but also something new. Lily wasn't saying goodbye to her mom. She was finding a way to keep her love alive, to let it continue shaping her future. As she closed the box, she turned to me, her eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in a while, peace. "I think Mom would like it," she said, her voice steady. "I think she'd be happy knowing I'm okay, that I'll be okay." "You are okay, Lily," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "and you will be more than okay. You're stronger than you know." Lily smiled, the same small, tentative smile I'd seen the first time we started to connect, but now it was filled with something else. Confidence. Hope. "Thanks, Clara, for everything. I think I'm starting to believe that." As she left the room, carrying the memory box with her, I sat back, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. I had come here to help Lily, to guide her through her grief, but in the end, it was she who had helped me more than I could have ever imagined. She had taught me what it truly meant to heal, not just to survive, but to carry love forward, to build something meaningful from the pain. And I knew, without a doubt, that whatever came next for her, she was ready to face it with all the strength and grace she had found in herself. It had been a year since I first walked into the Harris household, unsure of what to expect. The time had flown by, but in the best way possible. Lily had come a long way, farther than I had ever dared to hope when I first took on this assignment. She was no longer the angry, isolated teenager I had met. Instead, she was learning to embrace her grief, to let it exist alongside the love and memories of her mother, and to live her life without feeling guilty for moving forward. One afternoon, I walked into the living room to find Lily sitting on the couch, looking through the photo albums we had worked on together. There were more pictures now, of her mother, of the family, and of new memories that Lily was creating. She smiled as she flipped through the pages, but there was a quiet, almost bittersweet air about her. It was a look of someone who had accepted that life doesn't stop for grief, but who also carried their love with them, every step of the way. "Clara?" she asked, her voice soft, pulling me out of my thoughts. "Do you think Mom would be proud of me?" I sat down next to her, my heart warming at the question. "Of course, Lily. She would be so proud of how far you've come. You've been through so much, and you're still standing. That takes incredible strength." Lily's eyes shone with unshed tears, but there was a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I still miss her," she said quietly, tracing her fingers over the photo of her mom. "But it doesn't hurt as much now. I can remember the good things without feeling like I'm drowning." "That's a huge step, Lily," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "You're learning to live with the love, not just the pain." "I think she would be happy to know I'm doing better." Lily said softly. She paused, looking up at me with a thoughtful expression. You know, Clara, when I first met you, I thought you were just another person who was going to try to fix me. But you didn't. You just let me be, and that made all the difference. I don't think I could have made it this far if it weren't for you. I felt a lump form in my throat at her words. It was hard to explain just how much Lily's journey had impacted me. She had taught me so much about resilience, about allowing grief to be part of life without letting it define you. She had shown me what it meant to hold someone's pain with tenderness and patience, but also to give them the room to heal in their own way. I'm proud of you, Lily, I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. I'm so proud of everything you've done. You're not just surviving, you're living, and that's something your mom would be so proud of. Lily smiled, her eyes bright with a mixture of hope and peace. Thanks, Clara. I know she'd be happy to know that I'm okay. And in that moment, I realized that my time with Lily wasn't just about helping her heal. It had been about learning to heal alongside her. I had come into this family hoping to make a difference, but it was Lily who had shown me what true healing looks like. It wasn't about fixing someone or taking away their pain. It was about standing beside them as they worked through it, offering love, support, and the freedom to grieve in their own way. The years ahead were uncertain, but one thing was clear. Lily was ready to face whatever came her way. She had learned that life, even in the face of loss, could still be beautiful. And I had learned that sometimes the most important work we do isn't about finding solutions, but about simply being there for each other, letting the process unfold at its own pace. As I looked at Lily, I knew that whatever came next, she would continue to grow and thrive, and I would always be there, by her side, as a reminder that no one has to face grief alone. Life can be overwhelming, especially when dealing with loss and pain. But remember, healing isn't about forgetting or getting over it. It's about allowing yourself to feel, to grieve, and to carry your love forward while accepting that pain will always be a part of life. Don't rush your healing process or try to suppress your emotions. Surround yourself with people who understand and support you, and give yourself permission to take it one step at a time. You are stronger than you realize, and sometimes simply showing up for yourself is the greatest act of courage.